Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a quick rundown of a few points you can use to help improve at Apex Legends to get up to Diamond rank. In the first half of the split, I got up to Diamond and it was tough. It was a really difficult journey. I'm very much normally a Platinum player, and a lot of people sit in the Platinum skill range. It's very broad in there, but there's a gigantic player base of people in Platinum trying to make their way up to Diamond. In this video, here are my tips for how you can make that transition, how you can make it smoothly, and what's the best thing to do when you're solo queuing more specifically. So the first point I'd like to bring in is communication. When you're with a team, use a microphone, please. If you've got one, make sure it's on as frequently as possible. It will give you the best chance to communicate as much information as you need to your team. Communicate when you're shooting at people what enemy it is, what legends are in the team that you're fighting, what armor they've got, how much damage you've done. It's really important information for your team. Give that as frequently and as often as you can, because a lot of these won't be really tips around improving gun skill, because that varies from person to person and what guns people like to use and what legends people like to use. It's all kind of situational and opinion based, but these are tips that you can translate regardless of your skill level, weapons and legend choices. Please communicate with your team. If you can't, and sometimes I don't always feel like it, sometimes if I'm solo queuing on my own and it's late or I'm a bit tired, I might not necessarily want to communicate on the microphone, then use the advanced ping system to its fullest. Sometimes I even use that system when I am communicating. Use it to say when you're advancing or defending. It just gives your team as much information as you possibly can without a microphone. It's not absolutely essential to have a microphone to get up to Diamond, but if you're going to, then you really need to be using those advanced pings all the time. Ping where you're landing, ping where you're looting, and constantly keep that ongoing. Now, when you're landing, make sure to try and land in the landing is honestly probably the most important part of this video, because it sets you up for the rest of your game. And when landing, I would always recommend trying to land on the outside of World's Edge. We're currently playing on the World's Edge split, so my advice is going to be centered around this. Land on the outer edges. Do not land fragment if you're, I'm someone who struggles with 1v1 gunfights, so I try not to force them. And I know that about myself, so I always try to loot up first to make sure I'm in the best position. Favorite places to land are Survey Camp, the Tree, Thermal Station, Dome, Lava City, Geyser, at the back of Geyser more specifically, and knowing where to land, because these spots, not only are they good because they tend to be quieter, but if you land with a team, you have the choice whether to engage or to rotate. And I think that is what's most essential, and especially about landing at the back of Geyser, because if you land at the back, if a team pushes you from the front of Geyser, you can choose to either rotate through the vault to Overlook, or if a team is pushing you from Overlook, you can rotate further into Geyser. It's about giving yourself those options. It's making sure you get to dictate the fights, not the people around you. And landing in those spaces lets you. I love Thermal Station because of how big it is. I try to land at the center, and then I can move around based on where I am, the positioning. If there's people landing with us, you can rotate out of there towards Harvester or towards the Mirage ship. You have options. Similarly with Tree is such a big area, you can choose what you want to do. And they tend to have very, very good loot and not a large amount of players. Make sure if you're running a team to have a same jump master every time, and if you're not running a team and you aren't the jump master, make sure you're pinging where enemies are landing around you, and if you're on the mic, communicate how many teams are dropping near you. I tend not to drop places which have any more than 2 teams. But having a few places that you like to drop is great, because it gives you variety and choice, because not every game you're going to be able to land in the same spot. Survey Camp's one of my favorite to land, because you can rotate to Epicenter or Refinery, or rotate and hook round towards Skyhook, and even if the ring's drawing you that way, you can push fragment. You have so much choice from Survey Camp, and it's really underrated. But I can't always land there, because sometimes the dropship will come over from Survey Camp, so I'll need to choose somewhere else to set up. And Tree's got high tier loot, so I tend to go between those two, but also the other ones like Thermal and Lava City all have really good loot, and it means that when I'm going into the gunfights, I've got the choices, the options, the better loot, and we can push teams at Fragment who maybe are weak because they've just come out of gunfights, and it's about putting yourself in better position. Apex is all about positional sense. Very good teams can lose games because of a lack of positional sense, and there are people in Platinum with far superior gun skill to me and would beat me in 1v1s all day long, but I have to use these tactics to get around that. Next, and this is going to be an extremely cliche point, but it's to play with the legend that you are best with, and trying to make sure that complements your team. If you're solo queuing, just go with your best legend. Mine is Revenant and Gibraltar, and I was trying to sort of put off playing Revenant because everyone started playing Revenant and I wanted to try and give some of the other legends a chance, but I've started playing him again the past couple of days. Most of the gameplay you are seeing in this video won't be Revenant because I've been putting him off in ranked for a little bit, but I'm so good with Revenant compared to other legends. He is my best legend in terms of win rate and damage output and kill output, so play with the legend you play best with. If it's Wraith, make sure you have a secondary option because you're not going to get them in those solo queue games every time. So for me now, if I don't get Revenant, I default to either Gibraltar or Bangalore because I'm good with both of those. They're my next two most played legends. So make sure you've got one or two other options so you aren't going in completely unfamiliar, because if you're, say, playing Wraith all the time, Wraith is a very common pick. You're not going to get Wraith every time if you're solo queuing. Make sure that you are competent and strong and have played frequent games with another legend, and please do mix it up. Do not stick at one legend every game all the time, because it means that when you do have to inevitably swap to another one for a ranked game, you can really struggle with that. And I always think that you should be mixing it up and playing with some variety, because you might realize that there's another legend that you just play simply really good with that you never gave a chance before. So give them all a try. Make sure you've got two, and if you're solo queuing, 3 options, and go from there. My next tip is going to be making those connections with your teammates. If you have a game with a set of teammates and they play really well and they complement your play style, invite them into the lobby, play a few more games with them. And I know that I've managed to build up a few team compositions playing ranked games with a few different teams that now I play with fairly consistently just because I've invited them or I've been invited to play in a lobby with them. If you enjoy playing with them, whether they were just good with communication or maybe you didn't have microphones but they just played well and they knew when to push and they knew when to hold back, keep going with that team. The morale boost is so good, and you'll get used to each other's team compositions. And there are certain characters I play in different teams. There's a team I play with where I actually play Wraith more often, and there's also a team that I play with where I'm a Revenant consistently, and a different one where I'm playing Gibraltar. Play with different people, make those connections when the games go really well. And if you have a down game with a team that you play well with, you become more comfortable with them, because when you're playing with random people every game, you're constantly thrown into new situations. But when I was solo queuing in the last queue, and what's really helped me push up this queue has been connecting with people and consistently playing in certain teams. Now, my next tip is going to be regarding the weapons. You need to be using the meta weapons when it comes to ranked. There are certain guns you just can't really avoid. R99s, Mastiffs, even triple takes and G7 scouts, because ranked can have a lot more long range gunfight, so you need to have 1 or 2 members of your team rocking a mid to long range gun at all times. I really recommend the triple take and the G7 scout. If you struggle with the G7, just go for that triple take, because I actually really struggle with the G7 scout. The bullet drop, the sort of recoil that it has, I don't really like it. It's not a gun for me, but I do quite like the triple take. So if I'm going to be the designated player to sit further back, and in my Gibraltar team I tend to be, I will always pick up a triple take and a Mastiff. But with different characters, you tend to use different guns. I usually run an R99 alternator when I'm Revenant, which is an interesting gun combo, but Revenant's movement and crouch speed is all really good and really complements his style. So what I would recommend for you is having different gun combinations for different characters, because it will vary from game to game, and you'll know which characters suit them. Because I think a zoomed in Mastiff is so strong when you hit the full damage, and zooming in on Gibraltar's gun shield really heightens the amount that you do, and you can take more damage through that gun shield. So please find what loadouts work for you, try them in the firing range, try them in trios, see how they feel, but it's going to be different for each character. I quite like an R301 on Gibraltar as well, but I never pick up the R301 when I'm playing Revenant. So you can tailor gun patterns around different characters, but they will vary for person to person. You just need to find yours as quick as possible, but avoid some of the guns that maybe aren't quite so meta. An L-Star isn't going to do you too well in ranked. I love the L-Star. It's a really fun gun. I'll use it in trios all the time. I won't really use it in ranked, and there are other guns like that too. But then when I'm playing as a Wraith player, I actually quite like the Hemlock. Again, this is all opinion based, but the Hemlock I think is one of the most underrated mid-range guns in the game. Incredible hip fire, really good range on it. Never say no to a Hemlock. If there's one bit of advice to take away from this video above all else, is try the Hemlock, please. It's a great gun. I'll always use it as Wraith. And my last bit of advice is knowing when to engage. It is so important for you to actually plan an engagement into a fight. It goes back to that knowing when to engage and when to disengage with a fight. That awareness is essential. Make sure you know where the teams are pushing from, because third, fourth, and fifth parties happen all the time in ranked. You don't necessarily want to be the first to engage unless you know it's a fight you can finish quick, because the longer a fight goes on, the more likely it is you will get third partied. So as someone with lower gun skill, I'm pushing fights as long as I know I can win them quickly, and if the fight feels like it's going on too long, both teams just need to back down, or you just have to go in for the kill. Honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons that lead to third parties, is gunfights that just go on too long. Disengage from gunfights that feel like they're going on too long, and especially the first two rings. As you get to ring 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, everyone kind of knows where each other is, so it's a little bit less essential for that, because you can kind of bunker up in wherever your team is holding down, especially if you've got a Caustic or a Watson, and they are very common characters in ranked, by the way, so do consider them in your teams. But when it comes to those first two rings, please do not engage in gunfights for too long, because it will only lead to problems later down the line, especially in Fragment, because people are going to be rotating into Fragment all the time. Watch for all the angles teams can come in from. It's why when I run Revenant, I quite like having a Crypto on my team, because the combo of ultimates is really strong, but also having a Crypto to just dictate where everyone is on the map is so essential, because it just puts you at ease knowing where everyone is around you, or a Bloodhound scan. And if you don't have those recon characters on your team, you're going to need to keep a watch for it. And that's where a sniper comes in so useful, because you can use that scope to work out where people are. So really, to summarize, it's map positioning, it's awareness of characters, it's knowing when to engage in a gunfight, and it's knowing what weapons to use with each of the different characters. They are the main reasons that you can rank up from Platinum all the way through to Diamond if you're solo queuing, and also remembering to make those good connections with teammates that have good games with you. There's also community forums, so if there are people in and around your skill level who live in a similar area to you and time zone and play at the same time, you can go on Reddit, you can go on Xbox Online. I'm an Xbox player, so I can only really talk from that. You can look for people to play. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if any of these tips or tricks help, and if you've got any of your own as you've made a transition from Platinum to Diamond, please do let me know in the comments below. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will tune in with you all in the next video.